Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if you are making the best choices when there is a chance something really bad could happen? Something that could stop everything? Well, this new study dives deep into those kinds of decisions, especially when there is a small chance of total disaster. Imagine facing a choice. Most of the time, if things go wrong, there are consequences, but you can usually bounce back. But what if a wrong choice could mean you lose everything? Not just money, but the chance to make any more choices ever again. These are called extinction risks. Think of big things like climate change wiping out civilization, or smaller, more personal risks like a 1 in a million accident that ends everything. This new research asks, how do people handle these extinction risks, especially when they have to keep making choices over and over again? The researchers found that when people face these extinction risks, they don't always make the smartest decisions. They tend to worry too much about tiny risks and not enough about bigger ones. And they don't seem to learn from their mistakes as well as they should. So, how did they figure this out? Well, they designed a super interesting game. Imagine you are playing for 100 rounds, and in each round you can earn a little bit of money, say 5 pence. But there is also a small chance you could lose everything you've earned so far and be out of the game completely. That is the extinction outcome. Now, the cool part is you can use some of your earned money to make that risk smaller. For every 2 pence you invest, the chance of extinction gets cut in half. So if the risk is 10%, investing 2 pence makes it 5%, and investing another 2 pence makes it 2.5%. It's like buying insurance, but the stakes are way higher. The scientists, of course, calculated the perfect way to play this game, the optimal strategy. This involves figuring out exactly how much to invest in each round, depending on how much money you have, how many rounds are left, and how risky the current situation is. They used fancy math for this, like dynamic programming, which basically means they looked ahead and figured out the best move for every possible future. And what did they find when they compared how real people played to this perfect strategy? Big differences. First off, people didn't quite get the risk levels right. They tended to spend too much money trying to get rid of very small extinction risks. Think of it like buying a super expensive, top-of-the-line helmet for a casual bike ride. On the flip side, when the extinction risk was actually larger, they didn't invest enough. It is like skimping on safety gear when you are doing something genuinely dangerous. Another big finding is how people manage their investments over time. The optimal strategy suggests you should invest steadily, maybe a bit less near the very end. But people in this study did something different. They actually started off investing too little, meaning they weren't saving enough early on. But then, as they got closer to the end of the 100 rounds, they got much more cautious, investing a lot more than they needed to. It's like they were a bit reckless at the start, then got overly scared later on. And what was the consequence of these misplaced investments? More people went extinct. In the study, only about 11% of the actual participants survived all 100 rounds, while if they had followed the optimal strategy, that number would have been around 27%. That's a huge difference because so many people went extinct. Their average earnings were much lower than they could have been if they'd played optimally. Let's look at this visually. Figure 1 shows the optimal strategy. See how it changes based on the risk, how much money you have, and how many trials are left. The optimal strategy tells you to invest more when you have more money, because losing it all means losing more potential earnings. It also says invest more earlier on, because if you go extinct, you lose out on all those future potential earnings. People, however, didn't follow this pattern. Now look at figure 3a. This is where we see how people actually invested. For the smallest risk, 2.5%, people invested more than they should have. For the largest risk, 10%, they invested less than they should have. They weren't sensitive enough to the differences in risk, and figure 3b shows that endowment over time. The red line is the optimal strategy. Steadily gaining money. The black line is what participants did. They gained money slower at first, then almost stopped gaining it later on, showing that late-game caution I mentioned. So, to recap, people are not great at balancing these extinction risks. They get too worried about small chances of disaster and not worried enough about bigger ones. And they manage their caution poorly over time, often being too relaxed early and too stressed late. This is a problem because, as the researchers point out, we face these kinds of risks all the time. Whether it is financial decisions, health choices, or even bigger societal issues like climate change or artificial intelligence risks, we have limited resources and need to decide where to put them to reduce potential catastrophic outcomes. It's not just this study either. The researchers mention other studies that found similar issues, like people not adjusting their concern enough to the actual size of the risk. This suggests it is a fundamental problem in how we think about very bad, but low probability events. Now, what are the limitations and what is next? The study used a risk-neutral optimal strategy. That means it focused purely on maximizing mathematical expected value, but real people have feelings and emotions about risk, not just logic. Future research could explore how our emotional responses to risk affect these decisions. Maybe some people are just naturally more anxious or more optimistic, and that plays a big role. Another interesting point is that they set a fixed number of trials, 100. In real life, we often don't know exactly how long we have to make decisions. This uncertainty might change how we behave. Would people still get overly cautious at the end if they weren't sure when the end was? That's an open question. Ultimately, this research highlights a critical challenge for us as individuals and as a society. We have to make decisions about risks that could have massive consequences, risks that could literally stop everything, and we're not always the best at it. Understanding these biases is the first step to making better choices, whether it is about personal safety, financial planning, or tackling those huge global challenges like climate change. It's about learning to assess risks more accurately and allocate our resources wisely, not just for today, but for all the tomorrows we hope to have. What do you think about these findings? Have you ever found yourself over or underinvesting in risk like this? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more dives into fascinating research. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.